So for this podcast, I will be covering the WannaCry ransomware attack. I chose this attack because I thought it was one of the most interesting attacks that I have researched for the class, and its massive scale means there was plenty of coverage on it. Some general information on this attack is that it occurred in May of 2017, affecting over 150 countries and 230,000 computers globally. It was a ransomware attack, meaning the purpose that the people behind the attack had was to receive a payment in exchange for their data being returned unharmed. There was no main target to this attack. All businesses, no matter how large or small, were at risk of being attacked. This caused many small businesses to actually have to close their doors, as the losses they procured were just too much to keep the business afloat. As for larger companies, they suffered millions of dollars in losses, and many had to halt their services due to computer systems being disabled. All of this according to CSO Online. It was very difficult to defend against this attack as it was spread in a few different ways. A couple of ways the ransomware was installed onto computer systems was through phishing emails and malicious attachments that would use the Eternal Blue exploit to forcefully run malicious code once opened. What the ransomware physically did was to take files on the infected computer and encrypt them. That way, the only way to get that back into readable form would be to pay the attackers for the decryption key. For those that do not know what Eternal Blue exploit is, it is an exploit on the Windows operating system that, as mentioned before, forcefully makes a computer run arbitrary code. This exploit was discovered and developed by the U.S. National Security Agency, then stolen by criminals in order to perform cyber attacks. And all of this information was from SentinelOne's blog. The reason the NSA developed these exploits instead of reporting the vulnerabilities to Microsoft was so that they could use the exploits against other countries when the time came when they were needed. This backfired as a hacker group known as the Shadow Brokers stole many of these exploits and attempted to auction them off on the dark web. This failed, however, as people were too suspicious about whether the group actually had the files they claimed. The group then decided to leak some of these files over a period of time, and on the fifth leak, it included the Eternal Blue exploit, which resulted in many cyber attacks being carried out besides WannaCry. And all of this information and more can be found on the TWS channel on YouTube, which goes into extreme detail on many cyber attacks. Marcus Hutchins, a 23-year-old British security researcher, was looking into the inner workings of the WannaCry ransomware and figured it to be a computer worm. After running a sample of the computer virus in an artificial environment, he discovered that it was trying to route to an unregistered domain. Marcus then registered this domain for $10 and some change, which effectively halted the attack. And the best part, he did it by accident. So, to my understanding, the ransomware would rip through computer systems as long as it could not route to this domain, and the moment Marcus registered the domain, it killed the virus worldwide. Since the virus on all computers would halt once it reached that domain, the hackers actually implemented this as sort of a kill switch, because they could have prevented this from happening if they had just made it a randomized domain per computer. The total impact of this attack reached over $8 billion and is regarded as one of the most destructive attacks of all time. The people behind this attack were never discovered, nor was the amount of money they procured during this attack, but it is presumed to have been a hacking group with strong ties to North Korea called the Lazarus Group. Specifically, this attack cost the National Health Organization over $82 million alone, and shut down almost every type of electronic equipment in hospitals. As a sort of conclusion, I'm going to go over some of the biggest lessons learned from cyber attacks that I have researched over the semester. The first of which is and always will be proactive security measures. Companies need to have people trying to hack into their systems so that they can have vulnerabilities exposed before they are exploited. Some companies have even discovered holes in security and neglected to patch them, ending in disaster. The next lesson would be to make sure your employees are trained to handle social engineering situations where someone will pretend to be someone else in order to get access to the system or information. Finally, have backups of all of your sensitive data stored somewhere offline so that in the event of an attack, you are not forced to pay the ransom or suffer any losses. Thanks for listening.